ourselves against psychological operations. It is all about psychology. That is the name of the game. We are living inside of one big psychological operation. I am convinced. I've seen enough. There's just no other way to present that information. It's a fact now that everything is fake and gay, and dangerously so. And I was freaking out, realizing that quite literally all of our investigations from the past 2 years were coming together here. Brigitte Macron, where did we end up, by the way? Where did we leave off on the Brigitte Macron? I was speaking to you guys about MK Ultra, how odd it was that of everything I said in my series, Brigitte Macron and Emmanuel had a heart attack when I started discussing MK Ultra. They brought it up 18 times in the lawsuit against me, way too many times in the lawsuit against me. And I realized we were on the right path discussing this. It brought me back to that road. It brought me back to the Hate Asbury Clinic. We're going to talk about that. And the program that they're running throughout California. Yay. When I said why I didn't speak out, it was because I recognized that he had done something tremendously brave.
Whoa, now what Kanye got to do with this? See, Kanye, you always instant shit. This is what this again. That's why shit be happening to Kanye. He be going crazy and all that. Allegedly, could be, possibly, maybe. It's because he always in some shit. What the hell he got to do with Charlie Kirk? What the fuck?
And that the entire mafia descended on him. It was a psychological operation. They put him on a Psych 5150 hold, which is one of their strategies. And effectively, he had been MK Ultra'd, right? By putting on that Psych 5150 hold. Jeffrey Epstein. I did a mini series on Jeffrey Epstein. We spoke about the blackmail. We spoke about the trafficking through big companies, because nobody blinks an eye. If it's a modeling agency, nobody blinks an eye, as he was funding tons of mechanisms, particularly models in movies. Harvey Weinstein connection. I spoke with him. It was very weird that they took out Harvey Weinstein. That is a fact via the Me Too movement. And I had posited to the audiences that that movement may have been about hostile takeovers of companies. And of course, as we've been discussing on the show, Zionist Inc. Everybody understands what Zionist Inc. is now. You see it everywhere. You cannot question Israel at all, or they descend on you. Somehow, the Charlie Kirk assassination is bringing together every single last one of these themes that we have been exploring. So where did we leave off yesterday? Well, we spoke about the Cavalry Chapel. We spoke about Rob McCoy being the lead pastor in Thousand Oaks, one of their many churches across the United States. And my sense, which every Christian Zionist influencer under the sun is trying to ward me off of. Oh, how dare she? I can't even believe it. Bibi can blow up thousands and tens of thousands of kids, but Candace investigating the Charlie Kirk assassination is crazy. It's unbiblical. It only furthered my sense that faith had somehow been infiltrated. Faith had become a military operation, or perhaps from the 60s.
She was like, Bibi, he done blew up thousands in allegedly church. Like, Candace, you be going crazy, cool. Like, that's why motherfuckers be on people's ass like that, man. Like, say shit. I don't think there's no such thing as a secret society. I think it's a such thing as a don't play with me society. Like, imagine somebody saying it about you. You wouldn't want them smoked after that? Same shit.
These onward, that's what it's always been, right? Too many instances, as I showed you yesterday, of trafficking and sexual abuse. You have to begin asking the question whether or not this is systemic and it's on purpose, and who these pastors are working for. Then I get an email yesterday, which made me perk up. A flurry of emails, actually. Thank you, guys. Telling me to stay the course because the Calvary Chapel was also involved in Britney Spears' conservatorship. What? Excuse me. Now, to be clear, I never got into the Britney Spears web. There were so many TikToks, so many people that did the research, dedicated their time to it. I just wasn't one of them. And I will therefore make it clear that I am not an expert on this case. I obviously could not have become an expert overnight. But after speaking with Kanye and being a part of that, being around him when everything went down, I got the gist of the fact that celebrities are very much controlled, what they can say, who they're allowed to date. And if they step one bit out of the carefully orchestrated narrative, something comes down on them and begins to control them in operation. I get the gist. Now, so that we can have a little bit more of a gist, particularly who they were referencing is Lou Taylor. Lou Taylor apparently was very much involved. That is what has been heavily insinuated, and even by Britney Spears herself, got involved and pushed for this conservatorship. That is what has been alleged. I'm going to allow Brett Cooper, I'm just going to rip this content from her show, hopefully she doesn't mind, to explain how Britney Spears was effectively infiltrated. Take a listen.
We need to understand a little more of Lou Taylor's history. So Lou Taylor became involved with Britney Spears in 2007 after she was hired to help manage Jamie Lynn Spears. And this was right around the time that Jamie got pregnant. Now, somehow, no one really knows. I mean, this is not documented at all. She was brought into the fold of this family by their father, Jamie. This is Jamie Sr. And by 2008, so less than a year later, Lou was going on TV shows as the family's spokesperson to speak on behalf of Britney.
Lou Taylor is the business manager for Britney Spears' father, mother, and younger sister, Jamie Lynn. Lou, good morning to you.
Here you have Britney that needs to have some security somewhere, that every single thing she does and every single person she has a relationship with doesn't become an opportunity to be exploited. I mean, when do you ever rest in that if you're constantly in fear of being exploited? Every day, Jamie goes to work as a professional chef, asking the Lord to give him the strength to honor the people he works for in the midst of circumstances. That Lynn Spears is a mother that is brokenhearted just because she's apart from her daughter, that she loves her daughter so much. And again, asking every day for God to give her strength and for her to continue to have hope.
And her mom stated in her memoir, Through the Storm, that Lou and Britney's father had discussed putting her in a conservatorship shortly after that happened. So this was all around 2008. But the missing piece here, and guys, this is what shocked me, is that Jamie...
See, this girl right here is the white Candace Owens. She the white Candace Owens.
Sr. had around this time allegedly filed for bankruptcy. He had done this multiple times. And Lou Taylor's firm gave Britney's dad a loan of $40,000. Now, we don't know why, but he had just filed for bankruptcy, and this woman gave him $40,000. Now, within months of this loan, the conservatorship of Britney Spears was implemented. This was in February of 2008. But Lou and her father, even though Britney was apparently not able to function, she needed to be under this conservatorship, they kept her career going. Listen to this. Only months after arguing that his daughter was incapacitated and therefore needed to be under his control, Mr. Spears committed her to an 8-month tour named Circus. TriStar, that is Lou Taylor's company, was hired to serve as the tour's business manager, handling its finances and accounting, and the tour grossed an estimated $130 million. Money that was now under the control of Lou Taylor and Jamie Spears, the father.
So she was mentally ill, but not mentally ill enough to prevent her from making them more money and allowing them to control their money. So what we're describing here is effectively an infiltration. And instantly, with Lou Taylor talking about God and prayers, that's a lot of what you start to see. And then when you look beneath that layer, you start to go, okay, you start to ask questions. Then suddenly the God people get upset. Okay, what she's describing there is effectively an infiltration, but it's going to get crazier. And I want you to hold on to that idea of an infiltration, because also yesterday, after I covered Rob McCoy's Potter's Field scandal, the one that happened up in Montana, where I described to you an organization, a faith-based organization, and I told you that then suddenly people were wondering what's happening with the finances, didn't know where the money was going. Rob McCoy steps in as the CFO, and there's articles about it, and essentially this organization sort of disappears overnight. Well, someone who was involved intimately with this scandal messaged me and said, Candace, no, you have it completely wrong because you're reading what's in the press. The Potter's Field scandal, Potter's Field was actually a healthy, functional organization. This was actually Christian ministry until, and again, I'm going to say this is alleged, but I'm looking further into this claim, until Rob McCoy got involved And then he intentionally scandalized it and staged an effective hostile takeover with a few other board members. That's what this person is alleging. And they've sent emails and some backup proof, which we need to go through before we can present that as a fact. But it piqued my interest. The idea of a hostile takeover designed as faith-based almost, right? Like we're doing the right thing here and we're trying to help. Let's say the course of this idea of companies, people, and organizations being taken over via scandals, because the people who seem to get involved don't exactly have the qualifications to be in the C-suite or to be the heads of companies at all. And as Brett Cooper is about to lay out, Lou Taylor's qualifications are somewhat lacking. Take it away again, Brett Cooper.
Now, another thing that I think is important to understand about Lou Taylor is that Lou is not a talent manager. She's not here to just oversee brands or help deals be made. She's not like an agent or that kind of thing. She was playing the role of business manager, which is a financial role. Even though Lou Taylor had no financial background, she was not even an accountant. And most business managers, my business manager, is an accountant. Lou Taylor actually started her career in a church working alongside her husband, who at the time was a pastor at Calvary Church in Brentwood, California. And interestingly enough, according to financial documents that are in the public domain, Jamie Sr. was giving 10% of his income that he was making off of Britney Spears from the conservatorship to the church where Lou Taylor's husband was a pastor. Read this. Mr. Spears at times gave 10% of his conservatorship income to the Taylor's Calvary Chapel Brentwood, a practice known as tithing, according to a 2010 financial document. Mr. Spears gave tens of thousands of dollars in 1 year alone to the church, which is about 500 miles away from where he lives in Louisiana. Now, obviously, since then, all of this information has come out, and Britney has now accused Lou of playing a major role in her exploitation. And even though Lou denies all of this and continues to deny everything through emails obtained through Britney's trials, it is clear that in some way, Lou was involved. This is from the LA Times. Britney Spears' lawyer, emails show ex-business manager helped set up conservatorship. And in recent years, Britney has even gone so far as to accuse her father and Lou of allegedly having an affair and unlawfully using her money to fund trips of their own. This headline from Daily Mail reads, Britney Spears accuses dad, Jamie, of having an affair with her ex-business manager, Lou Taylor, and claims he charged her estate for the pair's trip to the Holy Land to get baptized. And guys, this is not Lou's only controversy. She is not just wrapped up in the Britney Spears world. Just a couple of years ago, The New Yorker reported that she also tried to place Courtney Love and Lindsay Lohan into conservatorships.
Oh, we're going to get there because as I started following the Calvary Church again, suddenly involved. And that part that she's mentioning about the tithing, since I put onto my Instagram stories that what is this? You're telling me that this woman, Lou Taylor, also was involved in the Calvary Church and I was not paying attention to anything that was going on with Britney Spears at all. And I've arrived at this same conclusion that there's some sort of an infiltration that seems to be happening with Calvary chapels. And here's where we are. That's ridiculous. This can't be a coincidence. There can't be this many people that are having this experience and have this much scandal involving this church. This doesn't make sense to me. Well, I put this up on my stories this morning and 2 other people reached out to me who worked with Lou Taylor and described exactly what she's referring to, this system of tithing that Lou Taylor makes them say 10% has to go to the church if they want to be blessed. I'm not kidding. 10% has to go to the church if they want God to bless them. This is why they should do this. And then also directing them.
I could win 10 billion. I'm not giving them 10% down in town. First of all, I'm going to build my own church of God. Well, we fellowship under our love for Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior. And y'all ain't got to give me no tithes. Thanks. You know what I'm saying? Thanks. Yo, what up, buddy? What up, Tommy? What up, share? What's the word, gang? Some of my people. What's the word, gang? What up?
To invest in other companies without necessarily revealing that they're involved in those other companies and that God will bless them and they'll pray over them. What is happening? How can there be this many Calvary Chapel scandals and stories? She also mentioned Lindsay Lohan. She's not lying there. Well-loved teenager, fantastic actress who didn't love Parent Trap when they were growing up and then somehow became addicted to drugs. Suddenly her dad, Michael Lohan, you might not remember this, but he got in front of a mic speaking to the press and called out Lou Taylor. Take a listen.
When Lindsay was supposed to go into Morningstar rehab, They started to reconstruct everything there for Lindsay to accommodate her. Sean Chapman Holly, Sean and Lou Taylor leaked that to the press because they wanted Lindsay to get out sooner and have her in UCLA so she wouldn't spend much time in a rehab. They're destroying my daughter's life. I'm praying that Dina finally gets on the same page with me and does something about this.
Now, Skylar, do we have the email, by the way, before I even get into what Courtney Love told me, do we have the email somebody sent me? And guys, just, I blacked out a ton of this email because it's way too identifying. And this sounds like a very scary syndicate, in my opinion. So I don't want to put anybody at risk. But somebody who very much knew Lou Taylor, worked with Lou Taylor, sent me this, which is interesting. Again, the whole top is blacked out. It says, I have since come to think that Rob and Lou Taylor's church is just a front for them and a ruse. I actually had many suspicions about at least Lou being tied to possibly the CIA and Mossad. All of the security that was hired under the name of, she's writing black box, she means black cube security. That was also the security that was provided for Harvey Weinstein, where it's really just the Mossad agents who now are mostly with the Kardashians. Now, we're going to talk about Ye in a bit. I did go to Israel with Rob Taylor and a few other people from our church in blank and know that they have many ties there. I've also heard that Lou has connections and ties to Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein, etc. I'm going to say all this is allegedly. Obviously, this is an email tip. I have not confirmed any of that. The reporter's trying to connect some of the dots, and they told me that the house that Britney was being held out in 2019 was tied to Epstein somehow via Tony Blair. Britney Spears lives in Thousand Oaks, California, as does Justin Bieber, I believe, and Diddy, I believe, has a house there as well. I know Lou Taylor built a house there and would find it very hard to believe that she does not know Rob McCoy, seeing that he was the mayor of Thousand Oaks and is the pastor of the large Calvary Chapel Church there. Before Robin, Lou Taylor moved to Brentwood, Tennessee. I think Robin and Lou Taylor moved to Brentwood, Tennessee. They lived in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and attended a very large Calvary Chapel Church there. And they were mentored by a man named Bob Coy. We brought him up yesterday, the pedophile scandal that we mentioned yesterday, who has since been broiled in scandal for sexual allegations and I believe had to step down. He mentored them in the process of starting their church in Brentwood, Tennessee. That's interesting. It would be foolish for us to think that Lou Taylor does not know Rob McCoy. She's exactly right. All these people live in Thousand Oaks, California, and he's been pastoring that church up until July of this year for a very long time. And it's about to get even crazier because back in January of this year, someone notified me that Courtney Love wanted to reach out to me. So there you go. Brett Cooper has mentioned that Courtney Love has also had allegations about Lou Taylor. We all know who Courtney Love is. If for nothing else, it's because the media has convinced most people that she had something to do with the murder of her husband, Kirk Cobain, right? That's the reality, right? I didn't grow up with this music. I didn't listen to this music, but I know the Kirk Cobain story. And I know that somewhere in the back of my mind, I was kind of conditioned to believe that she had something to do with his murder. It was never explicitly said, but there was enough innuendo to get us there. Anyway, when I made contact with her, it was because she had been watching my podcast and she knew that I was obsessed with the book Chaos. My mind just exploded, understanding how severe a psychological operation could be, the media being complicit, convincing us that murders happened. I ended the book and I said, did anybody die that night? That is how wild of a journey it is. The same year, of course, as the moon landing, an entire psychological operation. And you just go, what is real? What is not real? I don't know. If you have not read that book, you should read it. And I became even more obsessed with learning everything that I could about the 60s and the military grade MK Ultra program that our government employed in place after JFK was shot, right? Actually putting journalists on payroll to control our minds. If you are new here, you absolutely must read that book. You have to understand how this thing works. This is why I put together my book club, because it's so much that you just start to wonder what is real, what is fake. Are we actually living in a simulation? How could I have believed all of these things about people on the basis of what I read in the media? Because they gave you some sort of an authority, right? They present themselves as some sort of a authority, or they have expertise in this area that they fact check. And I think post-COVID, we're all ready to digest that these are psychological operations. Courtney Love told me so much information in January of this year. It was like she basically wrote me a novel. I couldn't process it. It was information overload. And if she had sent that to anybody but me, someone would have looked at this information and said, oh, this is just crazy. She's crazy. Truly, she's obviously insane, because people that are outside of the Hollywood matrix cannot grasp or comprehend what goes on inside of it. It's spiritually so offensive that we go, there's no way all of this can be going on. And then you join my book club and you read Hollywood Babylon and you're like, oh, this is actually how the system was built in Hollywood. It was built off of this stuff. So while I personally did not understand the nature of what goes on inside of Hollywood, I did start to understand it after everything happened with Ye. Okay. I saw it up close, and even I thought Ye was crazy, or like having I was being hysterical, when he turned around to me in my house and he said, when all that was going down and Adidas was canceling him and Gap was canceling him, he was like, are you an op too? Are you an op too? And I was like, what on earth are you talking about? Until I fully came to realize what he meant. It started with that book Chaos, and I've just done so much research since. Now I fully understand what he was saying when he was asking me that question, if I was also an op, right? Everything then happened to me, 2024, and I am certain that Charlie was also going through that process as well, where you start to realize there are literally psychological operatives in your life. He was asking me, Ye, are you a part of the psychological operation that is meant to control me? Are you one of these handlers that's meant to stop me from breaking out of this effective mental prison? I'm realizing something's wrong, and everyone's telling me there's something wrong with me when I'm saying, no, there's something wrong with this, right? Why are you trying to make me think I'm crazy? I'm going back to my own thing for tweeting that genocide is always wrong. The operatives are right. Oh, don't you understand how that could have been anti-Semitic? Right? So don't you understand, Charlie, if you go down this route of perfect sense, if you go down this route, you're going to lose millions of dollars. That is what he is referring to, right? Are you an op? Courtney Love, this is in January and in February of this year. I have all of this in writing. Effectively wrote explaining to me exactly how the operation functions and why. She explained to me that she was a toddler and she was experimented on at the Haight-Ashbury Clinic. For those of you, Haight-Ashbury, it's the intersection where they had this clinic and the hippies came, and this is when the CIA was just dosing them intentionally because they wanted to understand how to control minds. This was their focus, was how do we control, like mass experimentation, how do we brainwash people? And they were experimenting on hippies when they did this. And Courtney, who's writing a book on this, so I'm not exposing anything, told me that she was given LSD at this age. This is how she grew up. She grew up in this area. And she told me, I did not kill Kurt Cobain. That was part of a psychological operation to make the masses look away from what the CIA was guilty of. And she then told me through a lot of messages that at the core of all of this is ownership. You know, goodbye to your idea of a meritocracy, that you can climb the ladder and become a billionaire yourself. Actually, the best way to understand it is that when companies or individuals get too big and become too powerful, they send their agents to control them, to make sure that they are able to control their messaging. And if they cannot control those individuals, they will stage some sort of a hostile takeover of that brand or of that company or of that particular person. And there's a number of ways that can be accomplished. First and foremost, the psychosis. Oh my, she's having a mental breakdown. She needs a break. She's really tired. Britney's been put on a Psych 5150 hold. Kanye, he said he was just reading a Bible, and Harley Pasternak, and we got into his backstory, and MK Ultra suddenly puts him in a hospital on a Psych 5150 hold, and somehow his wife, I guess, was cool with that at the time, being Kim Kardashian. Also, of course, Wacko Jacko. The media gets involved in this, blaring out to the public, don't look at what's happening behind the scenes because this person's just absolutely crazy. They're doing this to me right now. Obviously, you guys see this every single day. She's lost. She's gone off the deep end. Thank you. That's where I'd like to be. I don't want to be in the shallow end, my friends. Yeah, let's get deep on these topics. Another way that they accomplish this is via lawfare. They will bankrupt you, okay? This is why what's happening to Elijah Schaffer, this is relevant. This is one of their strategies. When they want you to shut up, they will effectively bankrupt you. Your consequence will be that you have no more money. And Michael Jackson, despite the fact that he was beating Sony, he was owning his own catalog and almost owned the Beatles catalog. And that's when they swept in and they took down Michael Jackson. He died broke, right? And the people who he was fighting owned his catalog. Actually, in the news today, this is totally a God thing. I saw Paris Jackson was in the news today. She's lost in court and she's still fighting over her father's legacy. It's insane. The very people he hated, right, now own his catalog, and he was beating them. And they lied to us about the pedophilia. I did a whole episode on that. You should look it up. Candace Owens, Michael Jackson. It's a shocking, true story of what they did and how we all believed it. And then, of course, brings us the next way that they accomplish what they want. The media, a reputational assassination, right? The Me Too movement. That's what I was getting at. It was such an easy way to hostile take over big companies, because even if these people survive and prove they didn't do anything wrong to these women who may be paid to come up and say he did this or he did that, you effectively have to sell your company because you just can't, you're so tarred and feathered reputationally that nobody wants to work with you anymore, right? Who buys these companies? It doesn't matter, like I said, but at the end of the day, whether or not the allegations are true, it's how much damage they can do to you as a person. And of course, the last way that they can hostily take over your company is with an untimely death. Kurt Cobain, Prince, Michael Jackson, Charlie Kirk. And I should also mention Bob Breyer. Talk about a, I don't know, timely or untimely death. I remember My Chemical Romance. You guys remember My Chemical Romance? The drummer, well, he had an overdose at the right time, right? Kind of a crazy story.
So if they take me out, ain't nobody gonna give a fuck. They didn't even care about the rich people. So you know that.
The drummer posts this onto Twitter. This was October of last year. This is Bob Breyer. He writes, easy answer for that. Don't forget that Lou Taylor was my business manager for 18 years. We just separated in September because the Kardashians are the slimiest pile of garbage on the planet. They make a shitload of money, way more than I do, kind of like prostitutes. Anyways, I cannot be associated with them. Maybe Kendall, because she's kind of real and has an SF90 that I could drive. They actually have blood on their hands and I know everything. Well, we're never going to know what he knows because he then died in a very mysterious circumstance. This is People Magazine. My Chemical Romance rocker Bob Breyer's cause of death ruled undetermined. Nitrous oxide found near his body. So he died from laughing gas. It's undetermined. And if you read that book, Chaos, the medical examiners are always in their pockets, which is really interesting when you have these. And again, if you read Hollywood Babylon, it gets into all of these true stories of just perfectly timed deaths, which we're never going to know the answer to what happened. Anyways, going back to what Courtney Love told me, and I'm looking back at these messages and I'm mind blown. She made it very clear, which to me, she intimated to me that this is a mafia. Okay, this is a mafia. And they seek to own everything, every inch of land, every business, every organization. And you can trip onto their radar by making too much money. Like as soon as there's like layers of this. And first they're going to try to offer you a job and try to control you, blah, blah. And then if they can't control you, they will try to destroy you.
See, that's why I told y'all, if I ever sign for anything, a podcast, deal, any type of deal where it involves, you got to sign some paper. And they be like, Cap, we can give you 10 million or 1 million. Give me the 1 million, because 1 million, I'm still free. 10 million, I'm officially sold. You know what I'm saying? I'm officially sold. And then they're going to want to pop my rubber band. They're going to want to pop my rubber band, gang. And I ain't with that. You know what I'm saying? Type shit. Well, let's go.
But their goal is to just successfully infiltrate, right? Curiously, and I'm going to read this to you or else you won't believe me. She kept insisting to me through many messages that I needed to look into the quote unquote Mormon mafia, which she said sits above Hollywood and even sits above many Zionist Jews. Now, I want to be very clear because this can be offensive to people. Every faith has been infiltrated. Okay, we know that things are corruptible. This is not an attack on and saying every person in the Mormon church is involved, every person, the Catholic, no. But we know that at the top, things get corrupted. It's just a fact. And if you are actually a person that cares about your soul and you want to get into heaven, your job is not to defend corruption, whether it's happening in your church, in your backyard, in your own home. Your job is to try to root it out. And I'm sharing this text message because it's crazy that at the time that she sent it, I was like, I don't know any of this. I'm not up on, she mentioned Lou Taylor. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I'm going to read this to you. Okay. Just took a screenshot earlier today. She says, you're missing the critical part.
Before she finished that, I want to let y'all know Candace is the type of friend you can't tell her not to. Because she going to tell you about it.
The bright white and delightsome, the original Nephites. So who is it that doesn't drink, doesn't gamble, but they run Vegas, and a lot of the Jews that are in Hollywood? Lou Taylor for Kim Kardashian and Diddy, Jay-Z, Beyonce, and she also owns the home church home to get Bieber from Hillsong. I looked that up. That actually is accurate. It looks like she owns or sat on the board of Church Home. I know you Bieber people that were doing the videos about that know a lot. That seemed to be accurate. It made no sense to me at the time because I'm not hip. I don't follow a lot of the Hollywood stuff. Then she says Christian non-denominational, but she's LDS, born and raised LDS. Bill Gates' grandfather, also LDS, polygamist, not hard to dig any of this stuff up at all. The corrupt Fed who called off the 2006 investigations into CNB Bank for Mike Hurt's estate and Tupac. And then this is a question mark. R. Todd Nielsen, that firm is still massive, but he had to then go be one of the 12 apostles to the new prophet in Salt Lake, and with Ensign and NGO. And she goes on, and she starts speaking about this. And when I say I receives, I just had no idea what she was speaking about. I didn't have time to look into any of this, and did not see relevance because at that time I was very much investigating the Brigitte Macron thing, and was arriving very quickly at this weird backstory of MK Ultra and the Haight Asbury Clinic, when it seems like a button was pressed in America and big psychological operations started to take place. And now, of course, we learn that this church that Lou Taylor's husband is a pastor at has this background that involves the CIA. They even explicitly tell the true story about all these hippies. Well, the hippie movement was not organic. It was not real. It was a psychological operation. That is a fact, okay? That is not a crazy musing. It is simply a fact that they brought this, and this really became a way to ultimately attack the Christian faith, to divide the Christian faith. The story goes, these hippies decided to, give a fresh update to the Christian church. But then it turns out that a lot of these people that are heading these churches have military ties, high up familial military ties. And I find all of this to be fascinating. And it has only made me focus more on this faith angle of TPUSA, because I am telling you that when that individual, it was at his memorial, I hadn't even processed it because I was so in the grief stage. When they said that, something in me woke up where they said it was just so strange that everything was about faith, but like Turning Point USA was originally free markets and capitalism. And I remember you and Charlie running around, and I went, yeah, that shifted pretty quickly. And this is where we need to look. And the stuff that I'm learning about Rob McCoy, and the fact that people that are supposed to be biblical are telling us not to do that, and it's completely crazy. And Rob McCoy's up here trying to, I guess you could say, like, launder the reputation of somebody who spent years in prison for abusing children. What is happening here? Something is not right, and this is only the beginning. I'm going to put this out there because I think a lot of people now need to start paying attention to the Calvary Chapel in whatever regard you're researching, whether it's Justin Bieber, as I just mentioned, whether you're looking into the Courtney Love thing, or whether you are focused on the Britney Spears thing. You need to look here. We need to understand what is happening inside of these churches. And I am definitively not letting go, obviously, of this TPUSA faith infiltration, which is what it looks like to me. We're going to take a brief break, and we're going to come back and speak about the notorious Bush that we left off on a couple of days ago. All right, you guys, I've been speaking to you a lot about Riverbend Ranch because I absolutely love their steaks. Now, Black Angus beef is already famous for its great.
We ain't finna do that today, Ken. You ain't finna get us today. You ain't finna get us today.
Net/Owens. There's this whole idea that in the future, what they ultimately want is for us to own nothing and to be happy. And we are seeing that play out right now. There's this push to seed an entire generation with this idea that they shouldn't want to own anything. They shouldn't aspire to ownership. They should just be renting. I even had a conversation with Milo Yiannopoulos, and we spoke about how that's kind of the point of making everything look really ugly and tiny, and the walls are thin. Nothing is meant to feel like it's been here for a long time. Nothing is meant to be ancestral. That's been a topic that's been in the news recently. And I go back to something that was very strange when people were telling me what happened in the Hamptons before Charlie died. But Bill Ackman gave a presentation, don't forget, and told these younger people that they shouldn't aspire to own homes. They should just want to rent. There's no point in wanting to own property. Nothing should send to you a louder alarm that you should aspire to own property. You have every right to live where your grandparents lived, where your mother lived. Ancestry is very important, and I feel that they are trying to wipe that. And we are somehow at a very critical point. And I don't know much. I've never looked into the conspiracies about cloud seeding and these, the burning of the Malibu homes. I actually think Spencer Pratt did some really fantastic work, like Spencer Pratt from The Hills did some fantastic work showing that this was actually a government conspiracy. That feels right to me. Like natural disasters and then buying our stuff up dirt cheap. And when I'm looking at this picture, this is all about ownership. It's like it does feel like they want to control and to own everything. Don't ignore that. Don't turn away from that. Don't think people are telling you wacky conspiracies. Our government is evil, okay? Terrible people who do terrible things are protected by our government, which means that we are being ruled by criminals who protect each other. And I just felt on my heart that I wanted to say that. You should aspire towards ownership. You are not born to be an effective slave. And that's what it feels like. It feels like soft selling us slavery, and we're reaching this critical juncture. Anyway, jumping back into the Charlie Kirk story. First and foremost, I actually want to play a longer clip of me and him speaking and replaying that clip. There's something about it now that almost sounds prophetic, of him discussing what you would want to do and what allies you want to have when bullets are flying. Take a listen. People have to understand that we live in a different world now, but don't think because you follow me or that you follow Charlie that this has by any means been easy. There have been moments where I've sat him down and he thought that his whole life was over and was like, they're just trying.
Oh, man, you trying to stretch that little shit out? Man, what the fuck? I ain't no kids on a ball with a single down. Man, no wonder she be wearing that crown, man. She got a lot of strength. That's some crazy shit.
To kill me and destroy me, and I'm like, you get your head out of the sand. Like, we fight, we go on, and there have been moments that I've called you and said, like, this is it, it's over, like, I can't do this anymore. And he's been like, you get your ass up out of bed and you keep going. And it's so important for you guys to understand that. The next day, it always does get better, guys. It gets better.
Here's the other thing is, giving up should never be an option. And also surround yourself with people like Candace, that whatever you're doing, that can relate, and that when you say something that they're going to tell you, the truth, and they're going to be honest, but they'll also have your back. And I understand this might sound cliche, but it's so hard to find that.
Right.
It's so hard to find that kind of loyalty that, the kind of the old expression is, when you're in a foxhole, you want someone who is not going to tell you that there's no bullets being fired. You want just to say where the bullets are coming from.
Right. Yeah. That's right? Exactly right. Yeah.
You don't want someone in the foxhole with you being like, well, want to get a hot dog, like maybe a burger, a smoothie. You want to say, no. There's a machine gun nest over there. There's mortar shells coming from there. Right. Here's what we're going to do.
Here's
to be able
plan of action to get out of this.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the type of friend that you want. And you definitely don't want one that's going to run for the hills behind you.
Yeah.
And
We've had those.
Yes.
We definitely know who our allies are. First and foremost, I watched this and it made me feel great to hear that from him. Like, we got to keep fighting and you got this. The second thing, though, is it infuriated me because it is just, talk about a psychological operation. They moved in to try to rewrite history and convince masses that Charlie Kirk and I weren't friends. I will never get over that. I will actually never get over how absolutely insane and deranged the media is. They tried to invert reality, actually. People that weren't his friends were suddenly pretending that they were his friends and his supporters. I just will never forgive them for that. That is insane. What we're saying there is important. Loyalty is hard. And I was amazed watching that ending the way he describes a person behind him walking away, almost wild considering Mikey McCoy, the amazing Mikey McCoy, the not so amazing Mikey McCoy. And then he says this, he points over to the left there. And I'm now thinking, well, if he was right about what was happening behind him, what if there was something going on the left now that I'm thinking about, or what I brought up to you, which was that bush. I have in the back of my mind been wondering about this bush. I have questions about that bush that they said Butch was talking to. Again, I want to be clear.
You said a video louder than me? All right, just hit
We
the
see
video.
him near the bush by himself. We have no evidence to show that he was actually talking to the bush. These are eyewitness accounts on that day. And I just feel that maybe something may have been going on in that bush, right? Now, there is an individual that I have had questions about, and I have tried to discern through private means who this individual is, and I have had no luck. So I'm going to ask the public for help because he's had my attention for a while. Foremost, because throughout the event, I noticed that he was halfway standing in the bush. Obviously, I've looked at so much content, different angles, so many videos, and he's kind of partially in the bush. And I don't feel that it's necessary for him to be partially in the bush. It was not that crowded of an event. There was definitely space. The second thing that's compelling is that he's wearing a maroon shirt. And when Charlie goes down, he stood out to me because everyone ducks, but he just sort of keeps standing and seems to go inward into the bush and then out of the bush. And then I saw him from behind and he's very calm. He never ducks and then he sort of calmly walks away. I want to be clear, does not mean he's guilty of anything. But I'd like to speak to him because he might have some more insight as to what was going on in that bush. So first, regarding that bush, many of you guys emailed us and pointed to the fact that when the shooting happens, there's suddenly people on the side that are directing you, saying, go, 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 almost like they're actually maybe kind of protecting the bush. That might not be the circumstance, but we're going to show that clip anyway of a guy that does actually, as we looked, seem to be directing traffic away from the bush. Take a look at this.
I don't know who's been shot.
See right there on the side. Got people on the side there, standing, pointing away. Okay. Yeah, there's someone in there like texting in a blue shirt. Now, that could be because there's a shooting and that's a safe spot to be in and somebody can't see you. Maybe that's why you're doing that. Doesn't mean anything, but I'm just pointing that out because we have to gather evidence that we're never going to get from the feds. The second thing that I want to show you is what I just described, which is the clip of the person that I'm looking for who doesn't duck and calmly walks away. This is that individual. This is the front angle. You see that circle right there. You keep playing that. I've watched from other angles. Never goes down. Walks out of the bush. And I know that the police were looking for someone in a maroon shirt immediately after because somebody shared text messages with me that I did not publicize because I didn't want to. I just felt that it would go back to that source. Now, this individual I was able to discern was in a photo with somebody else who's caught my attention. Of course, the media began playing. They had all of these clips of what happened. And there was one individual who was Indian who they got a lot of the footage from that day from. And what's interesting about this guy, Samir, is very public. He's been covering everything. Is he was not a Charlie Kirk fan. He somehow has a lot of footage and somehow immediately gave this footage to the media. I reached out to him privately and I asked to have a conversation, asked to send his number, despite speaking with the media for weeks, giving them all of this footage. And despite oddly being allowed to interview Astrid Tumenez, I think a lot of people have done videos on Astrid Tumenez, the strange background story of Astrid Tumenez, the president of UVU. He didn't want to send me his number. I wanted to ask him basic questions. One of the questions I wanted to ask him was, hey, you are in a photo with this person in the maroon shirt from that day. He posted a photo with him and the guy in the maroon shirt. And he makes it clear that they both went to BYU. His friend, I would like to know who Samir's friend is on the left. That's who I'm looking for. You might recognize this individual. If you do, and again, we are not saying he's guilty of anything, but he might know if there was some activity in that bush please email moretips@candaceowens.com. moretips@candaceowens.com. Okay. Moving on from the person in the maroon shirt, but sticking on to this topic of the bush, people also sent me a ton of information about Butch Hibbs, Jack Hibbs' brother, who was here. And he maybe might have been speaking to that bush. I don't know. But he wasn't the only person, by the way, who was in that bush before the event. Here's another photo that was sent to us of a guy. I don't know. Maybe he's comfortable in his bush. Who knows? Another guy in a maroon shirt. I never knew so many men loved maroon shirts. I never even knew that. But we have another guy in there. Again, he literally might just be sending a private text. I don't know. But people sent us that, and that's interesting. And on the topic of Butch Hibbs, we got a flurry of videos of him after this shooting takes place. He's kind of just like crawling the area. He's up and around where the shooting happened. With what clearance, I don't know. You would think that they had secured the area and nobody would be allowed to go in. They certainly seem to have crime scene tape, but some people were allowed in. He was. And beyond that, he is just acting what I would say is strange, generally being shady. And in this one clip, there's a guy who's talking to the media about what he heard, and what he saw, and Butch is kind of just lingering in the background, almost as if he wants to know what that person is telling the media. I'm going to play that clip for you. You're going to see Butch in the background as another individual is being interviewed about what he heard and saw.
I don't know. It sounded like a higher caliber. It sounded like a higher caliber, like a 9mm. It didn't sound like a 45 or anything, but I don't know. It didn't sound that deep to me. It almost sounded like a cherry bomb.
Unbelievable.
It's a gunshot.
Wow. That's wow.
Yeah,
I'm in shock.
I am too. I can't believe it happened in Utah, of all places.
Of all places.
Where he has so much support. But obviously the opposition was here. And now we're looking at a murder scene, possibly. It's obviously a crime scene. But I don't think that Charlie can survive this unless the EMTs were close. And it was pretty, rated R level kind of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I
No
appreciate
problem.
your
You bet.
testimony.
You bet. Thank you. You too.
Now, he may have just been hanging out, trying to get a ride, calling an Uber, that caught the video. We really just don't know. But I got to follow this faith feeling I have, this quote unquote faith feeling I have. And that's what I'm going to do. That is what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow my every instinct in this until we figure out what happened on 9/10 and beyond that, right? This feels to me like so much is being revealed right now. And the linchpin of this is a Charlie Kirk assassination. And we're really understanding the way that our world works. So if you have any more information about Butch, some people were telling me that he was involved, and I have not been able to confirm this information with the military. I know his father was, but it's hard because they have the same name. And so if you have more information pertaining to that, please email moretips@candaceowens.com. All right, you guys, are going to take another brief break before I get into some of your comments. All right, you've heard me speak a lot about Nimi Skincare. I love their 3-step anti-aging routine. It's done wonders for my face, which is why I'm so excited that for months, they asked me to just wait one more week because he got swept up into something. So that was a cancellation. The second thing is the Egyptian plane. The thing about the Egyptian plane is so explosive. Like I said to you, I had to try to get this to the right people in government, and those individuals asked me to wait until this weekend. The reason why they wanted me to wait is because this is the first time that we have the advantage. I don't know what to say other than it's positively explosive. That's all I can say to you. And presenting this to the public, I don't know. There's not a correct adjective to describe what is going to be the result of revealing that sort of information. And in many ways, we're still trying to understand it ourselves. So I want to say Monday, but because I'm not fully in control of that information, I would say next week, tentatively next week. Okay. Top comment from yesterday's episode is funny how Pastor McCoy could so easily believe, as he did with that guy who sexually abused minor, could so easily believe that the police, the feds, the courts, the lawyers, and even the little girls were all involved in a conspiracy cover-up against a convicted predator. But questioning the assassination of his dearest friend is unchristian and crazy. That's what I said. Like, if you want to really see the psychological operation of Christian Zionists all saying the same thing, many of them are taking money. Obviously, there's a lot of money on the line. Turning Point has raised so much money themselves, and you will start to recognize these sorts of tactics, like just the hypocrisy, the astounding hypocrisy, where they will just be totally mum on the death of Palestinians and be like, how dare Candace even ask another question and not accept the narrative? The feds have always been honest with us about everything. Something stinks. You are so right. Remind you guys that we have new merch on the website, plus our Black Friday sale. You can use code BLACK20 and you'll get 20% store wide, and that runs through to Cyber Monday, pardon. So don't miss out on that, because everything's big and gay, and that's a good merch drop. All right, you guys, also getting